Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the Home Weather Office on this Tuesday morning. It's now the 7th day of January 2025, and this is the morning briefing coming to you from the Home Weather Office. And as I look out the window of the Home Weather Office, it's kind of still dark. Actually, it's just starting to get light. I'm recording early this morning around 7 o'clock. Got a busy day coming up here. A lot of talk about today, especially wind. Some wind in parts of Northern California, but it's really going to be Southern California and the Sierra that I want to talk about and have some different visualizations to show you on some of the wind that we're expecting in California today. Also, going to take a look ahead to the national view. I'm kind of curious about what might happen with the potential for that weekend storm on the East Coast, but I'll get to that in a little bit. All right, let's start with what is going on this morning. I always like to start with the satellite, and because I'm recording early, we still don't have the visual view, but we do have some fog in the San Joaquin Valley, as you can see here, but really not much in the Sacramento area, it looks like. And a nice little weather system out here that isn't going to do much for us. I know it's kind of tough to see, but if you look at the clouds here, look at the clouds coming this way over Baja and going into Arizona. So the clouds come this way and then dip in here. This is a low in here that is setting up the pressure gradient. So right here, there's a big high. Down here, there is a deep low. And when you get that sort of pattern, you get the offshore flow that is contributes to our big wind. And this is the way that it looks like on the 500 millibar chart. And so here's that low I was talking about, and here's that flow. So those clouds you saw on the satellite, all of those are going to be steered to the north of California anyway. But then you have this return flow this way with this deep low, and it's this sort of pressure gradient that helps to set up the strong offshore winds, the Santa Ana winds we get in Southern California, as well as the east and northeast flow that we get into the Sierra. And again, that's what we're going to be talking about today is the Sierra and Southern California. This is this afternoon, and that low is still sitting around, and it's going to take a little while to have that low move far enough away that we see that gradient decrease. We'll still see this offshore flow as we get into the day tomorrow, especially tomorrow afternoon. But for the rest of today, Tuesday, and into Wednesday morning, there's going to be very strong winds in Southern California. Now, keep in mind that in Southern California, we haven't had much, if anything, in the way of rain. Well, areas from, let's say, Modesto to the north have been doing okay in terms of rain so far this year. In Southern California, we've had almost nothing in the way of rain. So we have a couple of things for the potential to happen in Southern California today. You not only have the offshore winds that will produce the higher fire danger that always goes with the Santa Anas, but in some locations, the winds may also be strong enough that you're talking about the potential for wind damage. I mean, trees down, power outages, that sort of thing. We could be seeing some areas with winds gusting 60 miles an hour. So it's going to be a really tough day in Southern California. And even though we'll have the offshore wind and dry conditions during the day tomorrow, with that gradient relaxing and that low moving far enough to the east, we will start to see the winds calm down. All right, so let's take a look at the way the HRRR visualizes these winds during the day today. So this is this morning on the 12Z run, and you'll look at the Sierra, very windy. Southern California starting to get some of that, but as we go through the day today, this is this afternoon. Let me see, what time is this? Actually, this is late this morning. Look at these winds in the high Sierra. Winds, as I scroll over this, of 68, 70 knots in the mountains of Southern California starting to ramp up. But watch what happens down in here as we get into late this afternoon and into this evening on the HRRR. So this is tonight around 6 o'clock, but now look here. This is around 9 o'clock tonight. Now in Southern California, we're seeing those same winds gusts of 65, 70 miles an hour, or knots. And the same thing in the Sierra. See these little areas of that color that's in a whitish yellow? That's the crest of the Sierra, seeing these very strong offshore winds. So if you're skiing today or during the day tomorrow, don't be surprised if there are some wind holds. Now, this wind in Southern California, this is around midnight tonight. We still have areas not just in the mountains, but down on the lee side of the mountains, the coastal side of the mountains, because it's an offshore wind, that we could see those winds gusting as high as 60 miles an hour into the night tonight. This is getting into tomorrow morning. This is tomorrow morning around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And you can see that a wide area, not just to the mountains, continues to have winds gusting over 60 knots. And then gradually that gradient decreases by tomorrow afternoon. Let's see, I think I have another couple of ways to show you this. So this is the way CanSAC shows it, a somewhat closer look, if you will. This is today around 10 a.m. mountain winds, but let's go through a couple of more frames here, and let's get into that same time later on tonight. This is tonight around 10 o'clock, and there's a scale over in here, and once you get into these purple and brownish colors, that's where you start to see those winds that are sustained winds that are over 50, 60 miles an hour. And let me go through another couple of frames because I think we're seeing some of the strongest winds overnight. Unfortunately, the scroll bar is way up here. All right, let me go forward one more frame. Yeah, so this is 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And so this isn't all that uncommon to see the winds in the mountains. But then you go down here, these are coastal areas, so you have the downslope winds that also set up waves. I mean, look at the way the winds are here. Strong, weak, strong, weak. So if you looked at this visually in 3 dimensions, if you turn this on the side, you would see that the winds are actually going in waves. And as they get to the bottoms of these and some of the crests of these mountains, you start to see them get very, very strong. And also notice the winds very strong even offshore into the mountains. Now, that's Southern California. It's going to be breezy in Northern California, but really the focus today for wind would be in the Sierra. This is today around, this is this morning. Let me go to about 4 o'clock this afternoon. This is 4 o'clock this afternoon. And yeah, around, Yolo County, Sacramento County, Solano County, yeah, it's breezy. You have winds at, 20, 25 miles an hour. In the high Sierra, quite windy. Winds, as you look at the scale over here, 40, and it'll be gusting higher than that. So again, a lot of the ski resorts will likely have chair holds, or maybe even the tops of the mountains will be closed. I think about Alpine Meadows and certainly Kirkwood that I'll show you here in a second. So it'll be breezy in the valley today, but nothing like what they'll see in Southern California or what we'll be seeing in the mountains. Then as we head into the evening tonight, still windy. But we've had enough rain in this area to minimize any sort of fire danger, I would think. But it'll be a breezy day. But again, look at those strong winds continuing in the Sierra. I do have another visualization of the wind to show you. Now, this is also a product off of CanSAC. And this always takes a second to load up, unfortunately. So I'm going to move this down to get in Southern California. And yeah, here we go. So this is at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and this isn't even the strongest winds, but this is a nice visualization. I know the mapping on it isn't all that great, but if you can see here, this is the coast, and LA is down in here, and you can see the strong winds here, very localized, but very strong offshore. And again, this may take a little while to load up. Again, this is a pretty primitive mapping, but you can see that in the valley, we have that north wind coming down the valley and turns into an offshore wind in San Francisco and down through San Jose. But it's this strong wind over the crest of the Sierra. As the wind comes off the high deserts and goes across the Sierra, it gets very, very windy. Now, there is a site here that gets a lot of attention. And this is Chair 6. This is at Kirkwood. It's up on a ridge top. And this site, this gets a lot of wind. And so this is a snapshot of how it looks first thing this morning. And the temperature's 32. But what we're going to take a look at is the winds. The winds gusting 161. And actually, let's take a look at how the winds have gone overnight. This is a tabular look at it. And so back at 2 o'clock in the morning, the winds were at 92, gusting to 116. At 5:15 in the morning, the winds were 103, gusting to 128. And then at 6:15, sustained winds at 132, gusting to 161, with a temperature of 13.6. So if you go to Kirkwood today and you wonder why maybe some of the upper chairs are closed, this is why. I'm not quite sure how accurate that gauge is. It's quite a bit higher than the one in terms of the readings it gets than the ones up at Alpine Meadows, but it is what it is. And but this tends to be one of the windiest spots in California. If you've ever climbed up toward Round Top, which is just a ridge away from here, you'll know just what I mean about how exposed this is up here. Anyway, so if you see this on social media, this is what's going on. Chair 6, winds gusting 161 miles an hour, so the gauge says. All right, so that's enough on the wind. Let's talk a little bit about that storm that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. This just looks really interesting to me. And this is the GFS, and what we're going to be looking at is this system here. And this is getting into the day on Thursday. And so this is actually the low that's going to kick out of Southern California. And this is into the day on Friday. We have a low down in here. We have cold air dipping far enough to the south, so you have some snow into Oklahoma and parts of Texas. And the latest models aren't as aggressive with this for the East Coast into Saturday as other models have been. This is Saturday morning. There is snow along the from southern New England down toward Washington, D.C. There's the low here, but this isn't as aggressive as some of the other models have been. But it's something to keep an eye on because some of the models are producing a big snowmaker and others, like this one, not as much. But still, that could be a storm that makes headlines later on this week and for the weekend. We'd have to think about Saturday along the mid-Atlantic for the potential for a pretty good storm here. And if this were true right here, and again, I'm saying if this is true, a deep low here, which could bring a lot of snow to areas like Cape Cod and southern New England, Rhode Island, and places like that. For California, it still looks as though we're going to be going through this week and next week without anything in the way of rain or snow. Some of the models are starting to indicate maybe something around the 21st, 22nd. Way out there in Fantasyland, we'll see. So in the meantime, today we'll likely be hearing a lot about the wind in Southern California, but I think the strongest winds are going to be late tonight and tomorrow. Very windy in the Sierra as well, but for areas in the Central Valley, it's going to be a breezy day. Not a big headline maker for the Central Valley areas like Sacramento, Marysville, Stockton, Modesto, even Solano County, Napa County, where it can be a little windier. No, nothing like what we're going to be talking about in the Sierra and Southern California. So that's everything I've got for you on this early, for me, Tuesday morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.